Are we ready to start?
Yep, there we go. Okay, it is now 10 o'clock and I am going to call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everybody to the, August the 11th meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Denison. I'd like to do some housekeeping rules here. The Planning Commission is a recommending body, so our decisions based, with the exception of, we've got a little bit of feedback going, I think, over here. Move that away. Our decisions, with the exception of site plans and plats, which are final, are passed on to City Council for final approval. So I believe we have a zoning, is this a zoning case on our agenda today? So this will be passed on. What date will this be on the council's agenda, Bill?
The first meeting in September, because we have another case 2 weeks from now, so.
Okay, September the 8th. Okay, good. So we're going to give you an opportunity to come and address the commission on the case when the opportunity arises. Please give us your name and address for the record. And that being said, we're going to go ahead on, and our first order of business today will be roll call.
Chair Charlie Shear,
Here.
Vice Chair Brett Evans,
Here.
Spence Redwine,
Here.
and Mary Karam. Here.
Okay. All right, next order will be a discussion of the minutes from our July 14th, 2020 meeting. Are there any errors, omissions, or any corrections that need to be made to the minutes that anybody noticed? Okay. Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion. Got a motion by Mary, second by Spence. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries. All right, we'll move on to public hearings. Mr. Medina.
I think it's on now. Thank you, and it's good to see all you in person again. This item is 4A, receive a report, hold a discussion, conduct a public hearing, and make a recommendation on a request to change the zoning of 2020 South Scullin Avenue, Denison, Texas, from single-family 5 to local retail, case number 2020-74Z. The applicant's requesting to rezone the property from SF5 to local retail. The 2018 comprehensive plan shows this area to be developed as a neighborhood with some light retail or commercial where appropriate. Staff believes that this is one of those instances in which this is an appropriate use of that type of zoning. We recommend approval. Here is the subject property outlined in yellow for you. This used to be the Salvation Army's Boys and Girls Club. It's been vacant for quite some time now. I don't have an exact timeline on that, but it's been a while. The property is zoned single-family 5. I'm not sure, how that might have happened. It doesn't make much sense. It's not a residential house.
Right.
If you wanted to, you could buy it and I guess make it your, hangout. I don't know.
Have a cool basketball court.
You could have a big basketball court. It already has a track. It's outfitted precisely in the way that the applicant needs it to be. The applicant's wanting to open up a child care facility. So here you have different rooms, you have areas to eat, you have a gymnasium in there, there's a track. All that's already outfitted. There's plenty of open space, parking, circulation. Here's the zoning just for reference. The high school is adjacent to this property, which is also zoned single-family 5. And so is the Boys and Girls Club over on Myrick. You can see it over on the east, towards the right of the screen. It's all SF5. So this is one of the areas that needs to be cleaned up in our zoning map. And rezoning this to local retail will just kind of help set the precedent for that so we can keep moving forward with fixing this area. Present for any questions that you may have, and we recommend approval.
This is just a statement. My grandson used to play basketball there, so I'm very familiar with that building. It's a great building, so I'm glad it's going to go to some good use.
That's great.
Anybody else questions of staff?
No, sir.
Thank you, Bill.
Yes, sir.
All right, anyone here to speak in favor of this request? Don't everybody jump at once.
I didn't know we were supposed to. We were just here as a presence.
Okay.
Yes, we wanted to.
Okay. Well, if staff has any questions for you, we'll bring you, or I mean, not staff, but the commission will bring you up. Anybody have any questions on this one? I don't think so. The only question I have is, you're going to good. We're glad that's happening. Anyone else here to speak in favor? Anyone else here to speak in opposition to? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I move to recommend the approval of the ordinance to change the zoning from the subject property from single-family 5 to local retail pending final legal review.
Second.
One question. Do we not require a CUP for a daycare center?
No, for a childcare facility, it's permitted by use in local retail. I think in SF5, it does require a CUP. However, I saw this as an opportunity to clean that zoning up, and instead of making them go, it's the same amount of time. A rezone would require less paperwork on their end and clean up the map.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, I have a motion by Mary, second by Spence, is that correct?
Brett?
By Brett, okay. All in favor,
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none? Motion carries. I believe, do we have any staff updates?
Yes, sir. Oh, I forgot there's the survey,
It just turned into 45 minutes, fellas.
sorry. No, it should be pretty quick. So I've been meeting with Judd, our city manager, on what we're working on recently or in the near future. And that's going to be an update to our infill overlay district. I kind of want to pursue the possibility of maybe expanding it north a little bit. There's the Washington Heights edition, which really never got developed. So I'm going to look into what it's going to take to add that overlay over there and see if we can encourage a little development north. But the other big news that I'd like to share is we're going to try to reduce the width and depth of the lot requirements in the infill. So we're going to leave it as 50 by 100, but provide about a 20% deviation on the width and depth. What we're finding is a lot of these lots left over in the infill are a bit challenging, either because of floodplain, the railroad tracks, previous subdivisions. Allowing somebody to build on a 40-foot lot as opposed to a 50-foot lot just provides them that flexibility if they need. We're also going to try to work with folks on the setbacks. Sometimes it's really hard for these info lots to meet a 25-foot setback. Instead, let's see if we can bring that down a little bit if they need more room. The other thing to be included in there was if you're in the infill, you should have the option to pursue either a single-family home or a duplex as long as you meet all your setbacks and parking requirements and so forth. That should help to improve the density a little bit downtown without also opening the doors for large apartment complexes. So that's kind of the avenue that I'm working on with Judd. Ideally, this should be coming before this board or this commission at the next meeting, in September, first meeting in September, so that way we can dissect it a little more, get some more feedback before it goes to council. So if you have any questions about that, I'm here to answer any questions. Yeah, and I think that's something we might be able to address with corner visibility. I think that's where I've seen that being an issue in these older lots, where if we were to allow a 15 or 20-foot setback deviation from the 25-foot, we would just need to make sure that there's proper visibility on those corner lots as you're pulling out. So I'll take a look at that and see if there's a way we can try to work in adequate visibility, site radius in the update. And I think our engineers, McManus and Johnson, might be able to help me get the language for that just right.
Really, with a lot that's 100 to 150 foot in depth, there should not really be a need for a reduction in the front building line from 25.
You don't think below 25 is needed?
No, I don't. I think if we're gonna look at reduction in building lines, we look at PDs in the future where we're gonna use smaller lots. And when I say smaller lot, I mean that the depth would be less than 100 feet. In those particular cases, then yes, probably a 10-foot setback with a minimum of 20-foot setback for a garage line. So that pushes that garage door back where it's not right up on the street. But that would be the case where I would be an advocate for a reduction we already have a 10-foot setback on the rear, okay?
Mhm.
So if you've got 100 feet, you've got 35, so you've got a 65-foot depth. And on these infield houses, you're not going to have anything going to go 65 feet. on
Yeah.
those. So I personally don't think there's any reason for us to reduce the front building line in the infield.
Okay. Right now,
Well, if we had a case where we've got an easement back there, or some sort of, topographical issue or whatever, trees or whatever, then that would constitute a variance to that building line. But as far as us just going in and blanket reducing those, because what I don't think we want is for there to be a bunch of houses that are uneven as you go down the street, as far as the conformity of the setbacks would be in jeopardy at that point. There's always a case, size, shape, and slope, there's always variance process that we can go through to reduce those building lines if necessary on a per lot basis. That's what we have board adjustments for, so.
okay. So what we're finding is people wanting to go below that 25-foot because of topography challenges, trying to give that flexibility built into the code so that way every case doesn't have to go through ZBA. Our current infill ordinance, for a single-family home, the front setback is 25 feet, but there is a sentence or two somewhere in here that says, basically, if your neighbors are less than the 25-foot setback, you can go down to 20. And I think that's kind of the spirit of what you're getting at, is try to keep it even. However, we're finding that in some of these older neighborhoods, you have like a 10-foot setback, to where that 20-foot gives them some flexibility, but if there's a floodplain in the back or the lot really is just cut too short, then they do have an issue meeting that requirement. What would your opinion be in a situation like that? Going below the 20-foot or trying to keep that 20-foot piece in there?
Like I said, if we've got a case where you've got a lot, you've got a topo issue, okay? For example, let's take the lot I'm building on Waterloo. I've got a topo issue. And the lots are not deep, they're not deep. I've got 115 feet, I think, is the depth on that lot. But because of the topo, if I could push it up 5 more feet to 20 foot from a 25, it would help me at the back, I'm not going to at this point, but that would be a case to where, yeah, we could, a variance would be appropriate. Because the slope or the topo of the lot, that's the grounds for the variance. The 3 variants: size, shape, and slope. So if we get into a situation where we've got one of those 3 or more than those, 2 or 3 of the, I've seen cases where there's been 3 of the 3. But if you've got one of those 3, then you have grounds for the variance to reduce it.
Okay.
But I mean, in most cases, these houses, I think the deepest one we've ever done has been like 55 feet. There's so much backyard left, and I've got 2 over on Shepherd that we've got about 15 to 20 feet behind the house, and that's where the dense trees start. So, if it had been a case to where I wouldn't have been able to get the house in there, then that would have been a variance process with saying, hey, if I can pull it up 5 feet to 20 feet, then I can save all these mature trees back here.
Yeah.
So there's a legitimate, reason for the variance.
Okay. So what we can do is, I think if I'm hearing you correctly, what I want to do then is just try and keep that 25-foot standard with the capacity to go down to 20. I think we should just leave that alone for now and look at these on a case-by-case basis for topography, landscaping, or what have you, tree preservation. The other thing we wanted to talk about with you today was we've gotten a lot of feedback from our local builder community. There's a deep interest to do smaller-sized homes in the infill. Right now, the requirement is, I believe it's 950 square feet for a single-family residence. And we're looking at taking that down a little bit, or not a little bit, a significant amount. Talking with Judd yesterday, we're looking at either 500 or 600 square feet as the minimum. And I was just trying to see if there's any discussion or thoughts on that before I start drafting everything up.
Well, the first thought that comes to mind for me is preventing those little boxes that don't have windows, that are not truly houses. I don't know what the family is for those.
On Mark. building them in the SF5 district, okay? And we had talked about the possibility of taking an SF5 lot, splitting it in half. You know, I mean, yeah, it's two separate lots, but what I've been thinking about is, I think the fire code requires a minimum of 10 feet between the structures. Okay, so if you've got a 50-foot lot and you want to put two tiny houses on it, it's going to limit the tiny houses to 15 feet in width, maximum.
Well, they would have to be on two separate lots.
That's right, but what I'm saying is, in order for us to maintain, if you've got 50 foot of space, in order for us to maintain that 10 foot between those two structures, we're going to lose 20 of the 15, or the 50. So that's going to leave a 15-foot wide house on each
Gap.
lot. That's all we're going to get. So, well, I think what we talked about, and I don't know, you might run this past Judd again, is that in the event that they wanted to do that, they want to build the tiny houses in the SF5 district, that that was a case that would come before P&Z for approval, and that we would look at what they want to build, the structures and the design before we approved it and allowed it within the SF5 district, or the central district, I guess I should say. So.
So
you might
P&Z
wanna-
site plan approval?
Kind of, but I
Yeah.
mean, we needed to, you know, what we talked about was we need to see the plan. We want to see what the thing's going to look like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because it's like Mary, you know, there's concerns with, you know, with the architectural style of what they're doing, because, I mean, we don't want to mess up what we got going here.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with them, you know. I mean, we had talked about this a year ago, we talked about doing it, but we had talked about setting up a zoning district where they would develop them, you know. And there were some of the local builders and developers that were considering doing it on certain tracks, but, you know, there's a move to do it in the central area, so you might ask him about that. See.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to do is just trying to find a way to have our code in line more with what the market demand is right now. A lot of builders are wanting to at least find an avenue to do it. If we require some sort of P&Z site plan or plat approval for something like that, I think that at least gives folks an avenue to try it out, see how the product does, before doing a blanket overhaul like that. That might be a good approach.
And don't paint yourself into a corner with that 20% reduction thing.
Well, that would give us a 40-foot lot, which might
Which won't
reduce.
be that's not, but you couldn't take a 50-foot and split it in half. You see, that's what they're wanting to do, is take a 50-foot lot, split it in half, have two lots that they could put tiny houses on.
To 25-foot lots, is what you're hearing.
So if you put that 20% ruling in there, that's going to prohibit that from happening.
Okay. Well, we'll go back and we'll think about it some more. The 20% deviation, that has come from a lot of folks doing the standard infill, single-family houses that we're seeing all over the place. They're really just running out of room. All the remainder lots are just kind of tight, and we're getting minor plats with 42-foot width lots, really just trying to create an extra lot where there wasn't one before, or 45, 47. So that's where that flexibility comes
That's
from.
just a matter of economics, man, because the 50-foot lots have gotten so expensive that we're trying to cut them up now and go to 40-foot so that we can get one extra lot to help offset what we're having to spend on lots.
Tell you that, Steve, that will not be mentioned, we used to build quite a lot of house on a 60 by 70-foot lot. And the same builder put a whole bunch of houses in a different area of town on much bigger lots. And the thing that was sacrificed was the backyard.
Mm-hmm.
I guess not everybody needs to have a backyard, but they were well designed in terms of placement of windows and everything.
Yeah.
And nobody complained about it. So, you know, when land gets expensive like that, you do have to make some modifications. But I think the usability of the houses is something that doesn't always go into that design. So we got a cab over camper and parking in front of it. We bought one of the lot. And the cab over camper hung over the sidewalk that was in front. So that shows you how, I mean, I didn't know about these ones in those days, that was my first house, but, it can't be, I wouldn't think it was more than 12 feet. What would an average pickup truck be?
Well, it depends on if it's an extended cab with a long bed. It could be 20-foot plus on one of those. Most of them, I think, are around 18 feet. saying is that if in fact the developer comes in and creates the development as a PD, then they can set their own standards, you know, as far as the architecture. And I don't know if we could set the standards as far as materials on a PD, because again, that becomes a zoning ordinance, and I don't know if it's, you know, Austin's infinite wisdom has really messed that up, but, I think that what we're talking about, number one, is, and we really need to move on this. So staff probably needs to try to get this on our agenda as soon as possible. But we've talked about this now for 6 months or more. We have got to get the repetition ordinance on the books, because we've asked the building community in multiple times to please don't build the same house over and over and over and over and over, and they just continue to do it. And I am so sick and tired of driving down the street where I'm building, and I'm building a different plan on each lot, and I see the same house, and I look across the street from where I'm building, and there sits two of them side by side, and they're the same plan, and they're the same elevation. There's no reason for that. Other cities have the repetition rule. We need it, because obviously that's all that's been changing. Outside of that, I don't know if there's anything we can do about the appearance. And man, they're popping up all over town. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yes,
But they're popping up all over town. And they're putting them on really beautiful, beautiful lots. You know,
Right.
they've got mature trees and everything, and it's the same product that we're seeing over here. It's over here, and they're popping up everywhere. You know, and it's, I mean, it's the most unpleasant, disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life, and there's not a cotton picking thing we can do about it.
Would you like to see that in the infill, or are you talking citywide ordinance?
As far as
Your
I think
repetition,
it needs to be
architectural?
citywide. Now, you're probably not gonna have to deal with it much in the 7.5 districts, because the deed restrictions will prohibit it. So I wouldn't, it's not necessarily a concern, I don't think, there as much as it is for the 5.0, because it's mainly happening in the central areas where it's happening.
Yeah.
And it's just the you know, the affordable homes is where, that's the problem, and that's what's causing us, the issue. So I think right now, let's just worry about it in the SF5 district, which would cover central area. I don't think there's any reason to worry with 7.5s at this point.
Okay.
We're not having a problem with it.
So I'll chat with Judd and see if we can, if that's one of the things that we can throw in the infill, kind of beef this up a little
I
bit.
will put a bug in your ear, the mayor wants it to happen.
And I think we all do.
Yeah.
And completely see the
Yeah,
case. I
you might
mean,
tell Judd that, because the mayor has told me on multiple occasions, get it done.
I understand. I think that's something we can probably fit into this, I wouldn't call it, well, I guess it will now, it would be an overhaul of our infill district, and I think it should give us some good leverage to prevent that from happening.
Yeah, it's not that expensive to change. We're not asking them to change floor plans. We're just asking them not to build the same front elevation on every house where they look identical.
Okay.
And, you know, changing the paint color doesn't change the style of the architecture of the house. So,
Trying to keep floor lane from having to be, it's gonna be a brand new street and all those homes.
yeah, I mean, you go back over here on Hull and Shepherd and Nelson and back over in that area and go through, and there's one plan in there, I guarantee that it's probably in there at least 10 times.
It's also true on, kind of on the east end of town near Atchison Road,
Yeah,
back in there.
same plan, it's the same one I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Okay. If you think of anything, I'll be working on this for a little bit.
Maybe that one thing, some time back, we talked about the cargo units and how we felt about those. Is that something you're gonna be addressing sometime? Those, the small houses conversation made me think about it. There's, we were talking about when they would be acceptable and where their locations were.
I thought we approved that
Which cargo units?
for the,
Okay, maybe we did.
yeah, for the,
My memory escapes me, but since then, I've learned quite a bit about how they're retrofitting some of those for living conditions.
Okay, so like the
Yeah,
big train boxes.
yeah, they're kind of like boxcars, actually, yeah.
So I think when we talk about, I guess where it would come into play, because it's.
Well, yeah, I think we just approved them for storage. We didn't,
That was just for
yeah,
storage.
yeah, we didn't
Yes.
approve them for anything
But
for
at
house.
some point in time, that may be a discussion we need to have.
Y'all know Melanie Truxell has become a welder. She's got her welding master.
Yeah, those are for storage for right now, as our current ordinance stands, you can have one of those on your property temporarily for like storage. I think it's 90 days or 60 days. Not yet. I've gotten some questions, but what we've used before is, or when we've looked at those critically, you know, we have to look at the foundation. What's it set on? It's a temporary structure. It's not permanent. So we classify that as something that's mobile, right? That's really not suited for SF5 or 7.5.
It's just Tony Kai. Anything else?
Yes, sir.
All right, seeing nothing, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, everybody seconded. All in favor, aye. All right, we stand adjourned at 10:28 a.m. Thank y'all so much for being here. Good luck to you.
Y'all, that's